of the company called Reinteractive. We're a software development business. We focus in Ruby on Rails, which might just be a big misunderstood word for everyone in the room, or maybe not about 6 of you. But basically we focus in a very specific type of technology called Ruby on Rails that allows you to take an idea of a website or a web-based application or an online application or an iPhone app or things like that, and take it from idea to happening in a very short period of time. It's a really intense system of developing. I started Reinteractive in 2010 in May. I had the balance of a $5,000 credit card. I had $1,000 left on it, and I had rent due in 3 weeks, and I thought, well, shit, I better start a business. I needed to pay rent. You know, the previous 10 years I'd been doing volunteer work, and you don't earn a lot of money when you're doing volunteer work for 10 years, so I had no capital. And what I actually had done, the one thing that was really sellable, because, you know, being a volunteer is nice and everything, and it helps a lot of people, but it's really hard to sell it to someone. Yeah, I'm a really good volunteer. And I'm like, great, come and volunteer for me. No, I want money. So that was really hard to do. But one of the things I had done was I taught myself how to program in this language called Ruby. And the way I taught myself to program Ruby was I was building this product where I was a volunteer, and the thing that I found out was we had to handle emails coming in and out in the system programmatically, right? So, I mean, everyone uses email, right? So your email program has to receive a package of data, and then from that package figure out who sent it, where it's going to, what the subject is, what the body is, that this attachment is actually an attachment of a really funny cat, and it needs to be displayed in line in the body, right? There's a whole heap of computation that happens when you get that email. It's actually a mind-blowing amount of computation. Anyway, we were building this product, and there was this piece of software called a library, which is what you use in programming, that you use when you don't want to write all of that. You just want to take someone else's efforts and plug into it. It's open source, it's wonderful. Anyway, we had this product in our Ruby language called Tmail, and what that did was that handled emails like this, except it had one minor flaw. If the incoming email was in any way malformed, like had a bad header, or instead of saying 2: it was 2 space : or something like that, it would just crash, and your whole program would crash. So what everyone was doing in the Ruby community was they would start reading an email, and then if it crashed, they'd catch that and then try and figure something out and keep going, right? And while I was programming this, that actually turned out to be really cool, because there's the way that you get spam. Has everyone noticed you still get spam no matter how many spam filters you have? Okay, I will tell you the reason why you get this. It's because the rules of the internet state that if you're an emails program and you cannot decipher the incoming message, you must let it through. So all the spam people in the world went, sorted. All I have to do is make my emails really crap and make them all malformed, and they'll get through, and it's all good. So that's why you get all this spam. So then what I did by a stroke of genius in this job was I went, great, what I'll do is every time my program crashes, I'll just assume it's spam, throw it in the bin, go to the next one. Sounds like a good solution, right? I did that, and 2 weeks later, my boss came to me and said, Michael, where's all my email? And I went, what do you mean? I'm not getting any email from all of my major contacts. I went, why? And then I looked, and I could get the email, and that's all fine. Turned out that all of his major contacts were using Outlook. Outlook from Microsoft does not send proper emails, and it was crashing the system. So basically I just released a product that deleted about 90% of the email on the internet, which wasn't really what I was getting not paid for to do. So then I thought, well, I'll just rewrite the mail handling library. How hard could that be? You know, that could be easy. It's just 2 from and blah, right? Anyway, there's these things on the internet called RFCs, which are called requests for comment, which is like a document that defines how something should work. And you know, when you click on a URL and you click that, there's about, I don't know, 3,500 pages of documentation that describes how you clicking on that URL gives you a web page, right? It's massive amounts. Anyway, I found out that there's 47 requests for comments on how you should handle an email. And it took me about 7 months, but I taught myself how to program Ruby at the same time as writing a mail library. And that mail library has now been downloaded like 32 million times or something. So that's where I started when I've only got $1,000 left in my credit card, I better start a business. I had some idea that I might be able to do something with it. And my first customer was actually in America. So I actually did what Seb said. I went, well, what's my minimum viable product here? What could I possibly do that would generate value? No one knew me. I'd been a volunteer for 10 years. I wasn't in the industry. The first thing I did was I found a company in the US who was willing to pay me to write documentation about a software library that they were using that they couldn't understand. Sweet. That was my first job. So I got the job, and then someone else said, I need something, and I went, well, I'm already doing 40 hours a week. I'll do 80 hours a week. That's fine. The third customer, you run out of lots of 40. So that was where I went from here to, okay, now I'm at my MVP. What do I need to do? And there's an interesting saying when you're a business owner, working for yourself means you get to choose which 80 hours a week you work, which is, really nice. Everyone understands that, right? Yeah. So the thing that I wanted to, when we built up Interactive, we just started building and building and building. And what I found was that people really had a demand for our product. And now we're just on 4 years old. We have 24 people working at Interactive. They're all full-time. I'm looking at her. She's my community manager. I don't know why she should know that number off the top of her head, but she was the first person that I could see. So you can ask Chloe later how many staff work at Interactive. She'll let you know. And Lance is back there. Put your hand up, Lance. He's one of my business development managers. And then Andrew. And then Manuel next to him. So we're sort of in your meetup. Yeah. So we built up to about 25 staff. We're putting on more. They're all full-time employees. But we focus on building this Ruby on Rails stuff. And what Seb said here is really accurate. As he said, it is a model, right? So some companies go through this MVP Angel Series A round, and that's how they're going to do their business, and that's fine. Other companies go through MVP growth, don't necessarily take a Series A because they're profitable enough, or an angel round, and then just grow it and get to a point where they get acquired, or they don't acquire, or it's their life dream and they just want to keep working on it. You don't have to exit on a business, and I know Seb is not saying that you have to. That's the whole point. I mean, they've raised $59 million worth of stuff, of funds, and people are earning revenue businesses and earning money. Where we come in that whole plan is sort of between here and here. So I hope that really helps, narrows it down for you. That wasn't very well thought out, was it? So I'm not going to erase everything on this because I really like it. So what we do is when you're looking at producing that MVP, this is actually something we do a lot of now. Admittedly, about 3 years ago we didn't, because we were focused on building sort of on this customer, more of the scale, just getting more and more clients. And we've built or worked on about 80 online web applications over the past 4 years, right? So we have a bit of experience on what works and what doesn't. And the number one thing that we find when businesses come to us with a great idea that's going to make them fail, and it's sort of at the point where a client will call me and say they want to build a product, I can't tell if they're going to succeed, but I know if they're going to fail, right? And the number one thing really is that they're trying to build an MVP which doesn't have an M and really isn't a V, and they're just trying to do all of the P, right? So their first version is everything. And what they're going to do is they're going to build Facebook for dogs. They're going to take over Facebook, and everyone's going to sign up on this social network. It's called Woofbook, and they're going to make billions, right? And I've just copyrighted that so you can. And they come in with this product. And you see, the problem is that if you've got a brand new product for an idea, if you've got a brand new idea for a product, who are the first people you're going to tell about that? Friends. Yeah. Sweethearts, friends, I don't know if that's the word you use, but I'm going to say sweethearts. Friends, family, previous people you've done business with, their feedback 9.5 times out of 10 is going to be positive, right? Even if your idea is crap. The worst person to get feedback from is your mum. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It's, Johnny, that's brilliant. I'm so happy you're going to be a millionaire and I can retire and you can keep me in the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to, right? So the biggest mistake we see coming into Reinteractive is people that have this whole idea, and remember, we don't do the business side. You know, if you want to build a business and you want guidance on how to build the business, go to Blue Chili. They're proven, they know what they're doing, they can do it, right? What we do is we take the person that's a founder, they're usually already around here, or they're right at the start, but they've got a bit of cash, right? And they want fast results. So we can take that and build it out. But when you come to us, really what we need to find out from you is, have you validated this at all, right? And that's, V is viable, right? But it also means validation. Like, you've already done this validation, and Seb pointed out that the last MVP was simply a website that validated, would anyone buy this, right? And if you're starting a business, the number one piece of advice, and especially in online business, the number one piece of advice I could give you is validate your product. Talk to people about it. Find someone that's willing to give you something for it, right? You know, have the conversation with people. Yeah, I'm building Wolfbook. It's going to be fantastic. And someone goes, oh, yeah, okay. And I said, well, look, if I build it, would you sign up? Well, yeah, actually, I would. Okay, how much would you want to pay for it a year? Pay for it? What do you mean? Why would I pay for it? Oh, crap. There you go. You've just shot down your idea, right? But one person's not enough. You need to ask 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And even better, if you can go out and survey this on the street, just go out and do a survey. Just get a blank piece of paper, work out 4 or 5 survey questions on what pains you about dog ownership. You know, what do you wish you could handle about dog ownership? What's the number one concern you have about being a dog owner? All of these, you know, simple questions. And what you'll find is you'll start getting responses which give you a better idea on whether or not this is even in demand. We actually offer a little program at this stage called our MVP Kickstart, which isn't anywhere near as 156 steps of Blue Chili, but it's a very focused process of doing a user experience design. So we just did this for a customer. They came to us, they had this great idea about financial management, and they wanted to work out whether or not this could actually sell. So what we did is we did an MVP Kickstart with them, and basically our really professional user experience designer that's done, I actually use this all the time as her example, and she really hates it, but she wrote a website she did the user experience design for Michelin in Europe to be able to match all of the tyres they sell with every car type for every country in Europe. Have a think of that matrix. How many cars are there sold in Europe? How many tyres, how many road conditions, and how many countries with how many different laws, right? So she managed to figure all that out, and they launched it, and it was successful. So she can get her head around that sort of thing, which is really cool. But what she did is she sat with them worked with them on and off, not necessarily opposite them, but she'd take their data, go away, figure it out, go back to them, over a 3-week period, and designed out the things like the user flow, where stuff's going to work. But the most important part is once she had all of that, she then did user testing with the client with some of their users that they'd already had signed up to the project, right? So they already had that website, they'd already gathered some ideas. They got some of those users in to sit down with her and them, and they get treated like they feel fantastic because, hey, you know, this company's asking me for my opinion. Who am I? You know, that's really great. So they vest a bit more in the company, they get a bit more interested, it generates more interest. But it gets back validation, right? And you know, that wireframe actually for that company was basically a minimum viable product, because they could take that and start generating interest, that exchange of idea or exchange of data, like what Seb was saying. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. If it can be, that's great. But they could start validating that. Does that make sense? So that MVP is really the most important step. Some companies I know build a product, and they've come to us to build a product, and we've said, look, we don't think you're ready, or what you want to build is going to cost you 200 grand up front. They go, that's way too expensive, I'll go do it in India. And they go off and do it in India and come back to us. Actually, one client came back to us 6 months later and said, actually, didn't work out, spent 90 grand, how much to do it? And I said, well, 200 grand. That's way too expensive, I'll go do it in India. It's not that India is a bad place, I've been there, it's a wonderful place. But the problem is, if you want to outsource all of your work to a foreign country, be prepared to deal with the language barrier. Be prepared to deal with not knowing or not being able to see or not understanding if that client is being on-sourced to other people at the same time. You know, you might not be getting a dedicated resource. And there's a lot of steps that you need to do on that. I know some offshore projects that have been incredibly successful, right? So it's not don't do it, but don't do it thinking it's just going to be a cheaper way to do it. Do it knowing what you're going into. And in fact, I think I even wrote a blog post about this, or it's a LinkedIn post. We'll get it on our Twitter feed later if you want. And if you want to know what our Twitter feed is, it's right there. Actually, just behind me, @Reinteractive. So, but it's about what you should know if you're going to outsource. And that includes outsourcing to us, right? It's the same requirements. You need to know certain things when you're going to get the software built. Because software development's expensive. Who here has actually developed any software or had it developed? Okay. Keep your hands up if you think that costed more than you thought it was going to cost when you started. Everyone who put their hand up, I think, just kept their hand up. That's a known truth. Software is always going to cost more than you have available budget. And I wrote this, I had this question so many times as a software company that clients will say, well, how much will it cost? And I go, well, 200 grand. And they go, well, that's way too expensive. And I went, well, how much have you got to spend? Oh, if I tell you that, that's how much it's going to cost. Well, that's how it's going to cost anyway. You may as well tell me now, and then at least we can plan for that. You know, we know we're going to run out at this point, so then we'll work it out, because that's what you're going to spend. I mean, isn't it? And they go, well, yeah. I went, well, come on, we're all working on the same team. Let's figure it out. And 9 times out of the 10, they tell us, and it all works out well. So it's a little bit, you know, that whole get the MVP right is going to be a major part of your process. You can either do it yourself, you can do it in an incubator, like Blue Chili. Is that the right word for you, Seb? Where are you?
I've given up trying to pigeonhole myself.
Yeah. You can do it at a furnace. That's a much better word than incubator. Like Blue Chili. You should call it a furnace. The cool furnace. There you go.
Furnace in it. It's very good.
Yeah. So you can do it there, or you can pay someone like us to get it done really quickly. Like we'll develop and deliver an MVP in like 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just boom, it's done, right? Once you've done that and you know what your customs are, then you can start building out the website with all the pages and all the different links and everything that you're going to do. Because then you're going to start getting your money and you're start going to get paying customers and do that sort of thing. That step's going to be a lot more expensive. I wrote a blog post on that called "How Much Will My Web Application Cost?" And if you can't remember that as a title, then we'll tweet it. $200,000, right. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say about that. I might just give you a really brief, so I don't leave anyone with a misunderstood word on what Ruby on Rails is. So if you can imagine, this is all the things you need to do to get a web application running. And that includes when the person clicks on a link, it goes in here and then it connects to a database and it pulls out all this information, and then it checks the security token is okay, and then it gets that back, and it goes over here and gets the website security key and brings back, and it goes over here and it gets the view with all the HTML that needs to go on it, comes back and puts all that together in one page and sends it back here, right? There's a whole lot of things that have to happen to deliver that page. What Ruby on Rails does is it handles the 90% of the stuff that is common to every web application, right? So every single web application, I don't know if I can say that anymore, almost every single web application needs to access a database of some sort in order to get the data back and deliver it to the client, right? That makes sense? You've got to store the information, the login, the user ID, all that sort of stuff. So all of that sort of thing is about, if we didn't have something like Ruby on Rails, the developer would spend 90% of their time doing all of that, right? So what Ruby on Rails does is packages all of that up into a nice little box and means we don't have to focus on it. Which means we can focus on the other 90% of the job, which is your specific application, right? So we can spend all of our development resources on solving what's unique about your website, as opposed to spending development resources handling this other, you know, the minutiae of trying to get a website running. So that's really what Ruby on Rails does. It's a very simple understanding. Ruby on Rails isn't the only one, it is the best. And if anyone wants to argue, that's fine. You can when you're speaking. No, it's the reason we chose it it's a really cool reason. The guy who wrote Ruby, his name's Matt, That's not his name, he's Japanese, but we shortened it to Mats, because his actual name is Yukihiro Matsumoto, and Westerners don't like having to say all of that for some reason. But his name's Mats, and there's a saying in the Ruby community that Mats is nice, so we are nice, which is really cool. And Ruby was developed by Mats with the sole purpose of making developers happy. He didn't care about speed, performance, memory utilization. He went, you know, computers are doubling in speed every year anyway, so screw it. Someone else can handle that problem. I'm going to focus on building a language that makes people happy and enjoy programming it, right? And it turned out to be a right bet. He actually started building it in 1980 something, 82 or 83, I think. And internet, if I get that wrong, I'm very sorry. She's recording it. And he started building it, and people just really like programming it. And if you're a developer and you're a software developer, if you're doing any job, if you like doing your job, the number of mistakes you make are going to go down, right? Because you're enjoying it. You're not sitting there dreading the fact that you have to go work in the morning because you actually like programming. So because Ruby's optimized for developer happiness, Rails sits on top of that in a really nice way, and that's why we can use Rails and we can deliver really good results in Rails, and that's why I think it's the best. You know, it's not necessarily technically the best in every single aspect. You know, if you want to program a projector, don't use Ruby, use C or something, you know. If you want to do really heavy statistical analysis, use R, God help you, but use R. There's a lot of different applications and environments like that, but that's what Ruby on Rails does. Does that make sense? Cool. So, as I said, what Seb said's totally true, and everyone in this room would probably be here because you're sort of at some point in this stage, and you're probably not here. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be listening to me or Seb talk at this point, right? So, given that, you're probably back here somewhere, and if you haven't done an MVP, do an MVP. Figure out what that is. And the minimum viable product is going to be a lot more minimum than you would possibly think, you know. And you might think the minimum viable product, I need to have a login page, and they need to sign up, and they need to go to a dashboard, and they need to see the first product there, and they need to do it. Probably not. Maybe, like Seb said, maybe, probably not. And if you do have a really complex product that you do need a really complex MVP, then you need to start figuring out about the scale customer really early, because they're going to have to fund you to build that product, because getting that product built is going to be, how much? Right, there you go. I don't know that that's a real figure, but you know, a lot of websites are around that price, web applications for their first major product, even if they outsource. It's a lot of money. And there's a reason for that, because what happens is people start getting development done, and they start paying developers, and they start seeing the product, and they go, oh, that's so awesome. Can I just make it do blah? And every can I just make it do blah is $5,000, you know, or $10,000. Because usually what happens is that their concept of how much work it's going to take to get blah done is totally different to the reality of what it's going to take to get blah done. And that's sort of the danger if you're hiring a team that's really cheap but don't necessarily have a lot of backbone in saying no to you as a client. Because one of the jobs of my project manager is to say no to the client. You know, seriously, the client will come to us and they'll say, "It's, you know, this is all great. Can we please put this in the top right corner?" And his job is to go, "Well, yeah, of course we can, but look, how important is that to the whole scale of the app?" And they go, "Oh, you know, it's critical." And you go, "Well, okay. If we didn't build that, could you still earn money from this application?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, good. So let's put that as something to do later, right? Let's move it down the priority list. And let's focus on what we need to build that's actually going to get you an exchange." And we really focus on that point. What can we build for you that's going to get you into a point where you can earn more money to hire us again? Really, I mean, it's a business, right? So that's really important. So focus on the MVP, get that right, then look at building the extra stuff, but get the MVP done. And that's the message I want to give you tonight. Thank you very much.